And let's all come and grab our seats.
Get some feedback on the mic.
Okay, let's grab our seats, shall we? Come and grab your seats. Great, so let's all come back together. Great, I want to jump off our summer series that we've been doing. We've been doing this series called Things Jesus Never Said. We've done that as when I've been preaching just a few times over the summer. I actually want to just step off that today, and instead I want to pull out something from the theme of the youth conference that I've just been on, the youth festival. And the theme of it was this, counterculture. It's deliberately upside down. It was upside down in real life on the day as well. That's because it's counterculture, obviously. Counterculture. It's a great theme for young people, but it's a great theme for all of us, whatever age we're at. We always need to be reminded of this idea of being countercultural. We are not called to just look the same as the rest of the world, but go to church on a Sunday. We're not called, as Christians, to be indistinguishable from the world, except that we've got Matt Redman playing in the background, or we've got Maverick City, or Hillsong, or Graham Kendrick, whoever's your worship leader of choice, playing in the background of our lives. Like if we're here on a Sunday morning and we're worshiping, and it's great and everything, and then on Monday, when we're at work, or we're at home, or wherever we find ourselves on a Monday, if on Monday we then look exactly the same as the rest of the world, then I think we've missed something fundamental about being a Christian. We've missed something. Because to live as a follower of Jesus is to live a different life. To live a different life, a life that is distinct from the world around us. We have different priorities. We have different ethics. We've got a different outlook. We've got a different worldview. We are not just the same as everyone else, but with Christianity tacked on the side as a little bonus. Excuse me. Being a follower of Jesus changes everything in our lives because we are aiming to become more like Jesus. And he was totally counter-cultural. He was totally different. We are living according to his word, the Bible, and that will inevitably make us different. It should make us stand out from the world. So this year on the camp, they highlighted a few different themes. They did loads, actually, but they did, where are we? Forgiveness in a cancel culture. Remember that conversation Jesus has where they say, how many times should we forgive people? Should we do it 7 times? And Jesus goes, nah, 70 times 7 times. In other words, just keep on doing it. Don't put a number on it. Just keep on going, forgiving people. The world wants to cancel people when they mess up. Jesus says, forgive people. That is what countercultural living looks like. We need to be people of holiness in a compromising culture. The most straight sermon I've ever heard preached in my life. It was like, when you're listening to a sermon, you're like, oh. It was great. A guy called James Aladrin was preaching. We live by different standards of holiness. We are set apart. We have different sexual ethic to the world. We have different in the way that we live, speak, and think. They talked about calling in a world of comfort, in a comfort culture. And the guy speaking there was Craig Brotherston. Craig came here last year. Those of you who are Discovery regulars may remember Craig, Northern Irish guy who was just about to head out to Estonia to become a missionary with his wife and his 4 teenage daughters. And he kept using this phrase, yet not my will, but yours be done. Now, when someone's talking about becoming a missionary in Estonia, that takes on a whole new kind of feeling to it, doesn't it? And they moved 1 year ago, and now they've been in Tallinn, the capital of Estonia, and then in 1 year's time from now, they're going to move to a city called Narva. I don't know if you can see the map there, but you better make out the sort of grey, sort of brown area in the middle is the town, surrounded by the green. Down the middle is a blue bit, which is a river, and that is the Russian border. It runs down the middle of the town that they're going to move to go and plant a church with his 4 teenage daughters. That is countercultural. You don't do that, do you? Otherwise. That is absolutely amazing. That's what it means to choose calling over comfort. And in those ways, and in so many other ways, we, as the people of God, as followers of Jesus, we are counter-cultural. Our aim is to turn this world upside down through the way that we live. So whether it's going to Estonia to plant a church, or whether it's being here in West Cornwall and plugging in and serving, whether it's choosing to keep sex within marriage between a man and a woman, whether it's choosing to be celibate because you're single, whether it's choosing to work towards creating this new community that is the church, whether it's giving up your time to serve others, whether it's offering forgiveness, kindness, even to difficult people. There are so many ways that we can and should live counter-culturally to the world that is around us. Because counter-cultural lives point people towards Jesus. That is why we do it. And so I just want to highlight 3 big ways that I think we can live differently. Just in these few moments, I just want to share with you today. I want to draw on some verses from the Sermon on the Mount, from Matthew chapter 5. This is one of Jesus' big sermons that he preaches. A couple of weeks ago, we looked at the opening verses of the Sermon on the Mount. I want to just jump ahead into the rest of the sermon and move through the passage a little bit more and pick out 3 ways that I believe we can live differently to the world around us and hopefully see why it's important. Okay, everybody all right? Glory. That was so unenthusiastic. Everyone's like, we're right, but we'd rather it was 12 o'clock. No, of course not. Number 1, here we go. That's a nice effect, isn't it? Live differently out loud. Live differently out loud. Let's have a look at the verses. Matthew chapter 5, verse 13. You are the salt of the earth, says Jesus. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Amen. Over the last century in the UK, having a faith, particularly being a follower of Jesus, has become a private thing. It's become private in Britain. It's something that people think you should keep to yourself. It's okay to have a faith as long as you don't talk about it too much, as long as you don't try and encourage anyone else to have that faith. It's become something you do at the weekend, in private, in your leisure time. Keep it away from there, but very separate from the rest of society. So essentially, the United Kingdom has become a secular nation. We have some little Christian moments on state occasions randomly. But generally speaking, we're a pretty secular nation. But I think Jesus is clear in what he says here, that our faith in him and our following of him is not something that is just between us and him. Faith is personal, but it's not private. It's not something that we should just keep to ourselves and never talk about. It is something that should have a wider impact. It should even have a societal impact around us. So Jesus says, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Let your light shine. Let it radiate out. Let it ring out from where you are. And from the moment that Jesus spoke these words, Christianity went in to an incredibly rapid period of expansion. So they went from just a handful of people to within 4 centuries, they covered the whole Roman world. And they were here in Britain by the 4th century. That is some going. Most of it actually happened in the first 50 years after Jesus. They had some rapid expansion. How did that happen? Well, obviously it was the work of the Holy Spirit. That's what we would say first and foremost. But I also think, and I want to say to us, it's because the people of God lived differently. They lived differently to the world around them. They were countercultural to the people around them. So in that early Roman society, in a society that if you had a baby and it was a girl and you had too many girls, what they would do, they would just chuck them on a rubbish dump. Literally. That's what they did. They would throw them away. Do you know what the Christians did? They'd come in, they'd rescue the baby, they'd give it a home, and they'd look after her and they'd give her a family. That is countercultural living. Certainly at that point it was. In a society that reduced women to less than second-class citizens, Christianity elevated women and said that there's neither male nor female in this great kingdom of God. There's neither male nor female. That is countercultural. In a society that didn't care about the poor, Christians would come and look after the poor and give them dignity and help. In a society where promiscuity was everywhere, Christians would come and they would dedicate in marriage one man, one woman together for life, and they would bring stability for families. They worked hard. They obeyed the bosses. They obeyed those people in positions of power, even when it wasn't nice. They paid their taxes and they honored the emperor. Being a follower of Jesus wasn't something they just did on a Sunday. They didn't just go to church. It ran through every aspect of their lives, Monday to Saturday as well as Sunday. And that changed how they lived, changed how they thought, changed their actions and their behavior, and that in turn changed the world. They lived counter-culturally. Jesus said to them, "Let your light shine. Let the way that you live, as you live differently, let it shine out to everyone around you." Now, I've just spent a week in a tent. It's not my favorite way of sleeping. I've got to be honest with you. I'm not big on camping, but it is what it is. Thankfully, I'll share this is a bit more information than you need to know, but I only had to go to the toilet once in one night. So I consider that quite a victory in a tent. I don't know about you, but I find that there's a connection or correlation between how hard it is to get to the toilet and my need of going to the toilet. Does anybody else find that? So the fact that there's like 15 zips between me and the toilet means I'm going to need it more often than I would normally. But somehow this year I got through. But anyway, one night when I did get up, because I felt I had to, and I got up and it's dark, absolutely pitch dark. Well, it wasn't pitch dark, but it was very dark. Couldn't see, and of course I'm stumbling around, double airbed. Joe's like bouncing around everywhere, like just saying, "Oh, glory, thanks, Dan, that's lovely." Yeah, that wasn't quite what she said, but it was all right. And eventually managed to get off and clamber out, and I get my torch, and in that moment when I turn my torch on, suddenly I can see, and I can discover what on earth is going on in the tent where I am, and I can start to look around, and then I can head out and walk to the toilet. And who should I see at 3 a.m. in the morning? Joe DeRobeck, just having a little stroll around the campsite as well. Maybe that was the Lord that woke me up, I don't know. But you see, you need a torch, you need light. You need a light that shines or you can't see anything. And actually, do you know what? When you turn the torch on or you turn the light on, it doesn't just mean that you can see directly in front of you. It actually changes the atmosphere of where you are. Because suddenly, the kind of confusion that was reigning as you fumbled around, suddenly that confusion turns into clarity. Because you start to be able to see. Any kind of fear that you had before starts to be replaced by a sense of peace because you can see now on. It's replaced by comfort as you can now see where you're going. And I think that's what Jesus is saying. He's saying, come on, let your light shine in this world to change the atmosphere, to bring clarity, to bring peace so that others can see the way. Let your light shine before the people around you. You see, I think Jesus is calling us as individuals, us as a church, us as the people of God, to live our lives differently, but out loud. Not just differently at home, that's good, and we should. Not just differently in your head, we should, and that's good. Not just differently tucked away in a corner, but differently in a way that is visible to the people around us, to everyone around us. So the decisions that we make, the actions that we do, the behavior of our lives, the way that we speak, the things that we take part in, the things that we celebrate, all of that should be done in a way that is honoring to Jesus, that follows his word, that obeys his word, that seeks to live a life after him and seeks to live a different life to the world around you. And I wonder, what does that look like for you? What does it look like for me? Like what specifically does it look like to live differently out loud? Because I think some of us this is what we do with a lot of things. We other it. We say, well, okay, to live out loud, that means, so, you don't move in with your boyfriend or girlfriend. But like some of you have been married for 50 years, so that wasn't really going to happen anyway, was it? Probably. So don't like other it somewhere else. Don't say like, if you never drink, don't say, well, okay, it's not getting drunk. Okay, I mean, that is true. Those things are all true. But they're perhaps not relevant to you in that moment, okay? What does it mean to live differently out loud? Here's what I want you to do. Take 1 minute. Think in your head or talk to the person next to you. Just take 1 minute. Chat or think. What does it mean for you to live differently out loud? Okay, so I don't expect you to have solved that in that 1 minute you had there, but it's just to start your mind thinking, isn't it? These are spiritual issues, but they require practical responses to them. Okay, we cannot just leave them at a kind of theoretical level. They are real. They impact every day of our lives. They're important, so it's good to think about these things. Let's move on to the second thing. Here we go, number 2. Live differently in the details. Live differently in the details. Let's read again from Matthew 5. Jesus says, You've heard that it was said to the people long ago, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Then we're going to jump to verse 27. You've heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. You see, as this passage goes on, Jesus starts to use this kind of phrase thing that it's a really common thing that he uses over and over again. He uses this. He says, you've heard it said, but I tell you, or I say to you this. You've heard it said this, but I say to you this. And usually, almost really, the first thing that he says is true. You've heard it said. But then he takes it into greater detail, if you like, on the second. So the first thing is often really big. So he's got murder, adultery here. And then he starts to really pull it down in the second thing. He starts to really direct our attention. So Jesus says, you've heard it said, don't murder. Obviously. I think we'd probably be all on that one. We would understand Jesus, not a big fan of murder. And we shouldn't either. Now, most people will never murder anyone. I mean, it's not on my bucket list. There's moments, obviously, for all of us, we think about it, don't we? No. But it's not something we're going to do. So what does Jesus do? He says, you've heard it said, don't murder, or roll it down, but I say to you, don't be angry. Wow. Suddenly we've gone from up there, where most of us can say, well, yeah, I'm not up there, that's right. He rolls it right down to suddenly where all of us are. And he hits it in and says, don't be angry. Because you know what? At the root of both of those things is the same sin, whether it's anger or whether it's murder. One is more extreme than the other, but they both have the same root. He says, don't commit adultery. But then he rolls it down into the detail and says, do you know what? If you've already looked lustfully at someone, you've already done it. He does the big thing, and then he rolls it down into the detail and says, look, don't just other it. Don't just leave it out there as something that other people do. This is what we all do. Brings it right down to us. So he's saying to live differently, to live counterculturally, is not just about the big things. It is, okay? It is about the big things, but it's not just about the big things. It's about the little details of our lives. It's about the everyday decisions, the everyday attitudes, the everyday thinking that we have that can take root all too easily in our lives. You see that guy at work who is really, really annoying, and you really dislike him. I mean, you probably wouldn't murder him unless you were confident that no one would know, but you probably wouldn't murder him, but he makes you so angry. And more often than not, that kind of anger and annoyance, it just bubbles over a little bit. And it comes out when you're talking to him, or it comes out when you're talking about him, when you're talking to other people. And Jesus is saying, look, you know you shouldn't murder, but I'm going to say to you, don't be so angry with that person. Live counterculturally, live differently. Forgive them, love them, show them some slack. And we're going to have a look in a minute at what that means. And no one is saying that this is easy, but this is what countercultural living looks like. Sometimes to live counterculturally will look like moving to the Russian border to plant a church. Sometimes it will. Maybe even for you, that will be the case. I don't know. I'm not saying that's a prophetic word, so don't panic. But, who knows? Sometimes it will look like stepping back from the precipice of a massive mistake, like murder or adultery. But I'll tell you what it always looks like, is being Christ-like in the small stuff. Is honoring Jesus and being more like him in the small details, in the hundreds of everyday thoughts, words, and actions that make up our lives. Live differently in the details, Jesus says. Last one for us. Thirdly, here we go. Live differently when it's hard. Live differently when it's hard. Let's read again from Matthew 5:38. He says, you've heard that it was said, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. You've heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that? This really is countercultural living. Reacting differently when things are tough. Responding with kindness and with grace in the face of aggression. Showing generosity in the face of selfish wanting the best for those who want the worst for you or who treat you badly. Jesus says, like, anyone can be nice to nice people. Like, I mean, that doesn't mean anything, does it? Like, if someone's nice, you can be nice back to them. Anyone can be generous to someone who's very grateful and who loves it. But to do those things to horrible people, to nasty people, to people who will treat you, well, that's a different thing altogether. But that's what Jesus calls us to do. That's what he says countercultural living looks like. And so you might even deserve to get your pound of flesh. Like on paper, you deserve to get something from this person. But Jesus says, okay, but just show grace, kindness, love, generosity. Show goodness to them. In fact, when Luke records this same statement that Jesus makes, he actually adds in a little bit more that Jesus says. Look at this. But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. That's an amazing verse when you start to break it down. Look at what he says there. He says, love your enemies. Greek word agape. We like using that about each other, like agape love, and God loves us, and we love each other, and all that's all nice. But he says here, do it for your enemies. Do it for those who are hostile to you. When you look up that word agape, you know what it means? Love, value, esteem, feel generous concern for, delight in. Wowzers. Jesus says, delight in your enemies. I'll leave that one with you. You can ponder on that. He says, do good to those who hate you. Do good to those who are hostile to you. This one's fascinating. Greek word for do here is poieo. It means to make, to form, to construct, to create. It means all those kind of things, to prepare. So Jesus is saying, do good, create good, prepare good, construct good. Don't just think about it. Don't just like, if it happens to be convenient, do good for those who hate you. Jesus says, no, construct it, create it, make it, be premeditated in your doing good towards your enemies. It's such an active word. Like, it'd be so much easier if Jesus had just said, like, if it's convenient and there's an opportunity, you could just say, like, please or thank you to a nasty person. But no, he says, no, go out of your way to make it happen. Then he says, bless those who curse you. Bless. Bless those who curse you. Bless means speak well of, praise, confer favor upon. It's the word we use towards God. The Psalms are full of bless God, bless him. There's a song, we might even sing it, I don't know, later on. Bless God in the sanctuary, bless God in every situation. Well, he says, do that to people around you. Confer good upon them. Praise them. Speak well of them. And that last thing there, he says, pray for those who mistreat you. Pray for them. Pray on their behalf. Ask God to bless them and look after them. It's challenging, isn't it? Now, here's what I think we do with the turn the other cheek thing, is when Jesus says turn the other cheek, we think that means if somebody slaps us on the cheek, we do that kind of like sort of turn away, like turn our cheek away. And that's not what Jesus is saying. That was a slightly camp, sort of a different kind of camp to last week, wasn't it? Thing I was doing there. Sorry about that. He's not saying just be stroppy and turn your face away. He's saying, like, fix your eyes on your enemy fully. The one who's just hurt you, has slapped you in the cheek, who's persecuted, he says, offer them the opportunity to do it again. Wowzers. Now, can I put a caveat in there that we got, obviously, if you're being abused by someone, Jesus is not saying go back and offer yourself for abuse again. He's not saying that, okay? If you're being abused by someone, particularly physical or sexual abuse by someone, you can get out of there. Come and talk to one of us. We'll do everything we can to help you and to look after you and to get you out of that situation. You do not have to go back to the dog as he vomits. Again, you don't have to do that. But Jesus is saying, actually, for most of us, for most of the time, when we're being persecuted, when someone is hostile towards us, he is saying, don't hate them, but come back to them and bless them and love them and give good to them, pray for them, because that is what countercultural living looks like. That is what living differently looks like, and that's what God has called us to do. That's how he's called us to live. And so I want to call us, me included, to live counterculturally, to live differently to this world that is around us, out loud, in all the details, and even when it's incredibly hard as well. Let's live differently. And why do we do this? Because Jesus did. Because Jesus lived totally counterculturally. He lived totally out loud. No one was under any misunderstanding about what he stood for. He did it in every small detail. In his thought life, in his word actions, he lived differently. And he did it even when he was hard, even when he was being led to the cross and he had every opportunity to fight back. He didn't. He loved the people in front of him. His countercultural living has enabled us to be saved, has enabled us to be forgiven from our sins. And so he calls us to live in the same way. I want to be more like Jesus in my life. Anybody else? I think if we're followers of Jesus, we want to become more like Jesus. That's the call on our lives, to live like him. We'll never get there fully, obviously, because he's Jesus, but I want to live more like him. And in my head, very often, it's all nice stuff, but actually sometimes it's tough. And he calls us to live differently. I want us to do that. We're going to finish kind of our service together by responding through communion. So we've got the communion table. We're going to gather around this table and we're going to eat of the bread and drink of the cup, because that reminds us of this different life that Jesus led, this holy life, this countercultural life, and the call that is on us to live differently. So, Ed, you come back and Liz as well, let's come back and worship